I'm glad I'm here. It's Friday. We're doing another episode of Logo Redesign. And in case you're new to the format, it's logos you love, or maybe I should say logos you love to hate. And we're going to be redesigning today with new participant, new designer. His name is Maxwell Billings. And in case you're unfamiliar with his work, go out and check out madeby87.com. Madeby87.com. And you can check out his work also on Instagram at madeby87. And this is some of his work. It's super impressive. And I like seeing this. And this is probably a little departure for us because usually we talk to people who are really concentrated on logo design. But here in Maxwell's work, we see lots of things like copywriting, signage, menu design, exhibit design. There's a lot of stuff that's going on, packaging, and I like seeing this because I think this is where many designers, if you have the skill, if you have the aptitude for this is where you should be. You should be thinking about the entirety of the brand from every point of consumer interaction. So I'm really excited to see what Maxwell comes up with. Now, he's chosen to take on United Airlines. Now, I was unfamiliar with this, but apparently United Airlines had redesigned their logo with their acquisition of another airline. And so this is the weird combo mark that they've come up with. Because if he had redesigned the original Saul Bass logo, I might have some issues with that, but here we are. And so we want to see how he went from this to this. And I have to ask you, first of all, Maxwell, why? Why did you pick United Airlines of all logos to redesign?
Sure. Thankfully, I have a couple reasons, and that's the first portion of my presentation here. So, really, the first reason that I have for why United is there's a lot of nostalgia there. So, it's a Chicago company. I'm from Chicago. You know, flying out of O'Hare Airport, which is the United hub, was
Mm-hmm.
always the thing when you were a kid. The Last Dance was just on ESPN. Everyone's watching the Bulls again, and of course, the Bulls play at the United Center, the house that Jordan built. And there's just a lot of that, that sort of heritage to travel and growing up. The second part, as you mentioned, is design legacy. So you have the original or one of the original redesigns of the logo back in 1974 by Saul Bass. And then in 1997, you have the update to the logo from Michael Beirut and Pentagram. This is the infamous tulip logo design that everybody loves. And one of the big things whenever you dive into learning about a brand is doing a little more homework. And in the case of Michael Beirut, I actually flipped open his book and completely forgot that there's an entire section about United Airlines in there. So to all the students who are wondering about how do you research and learn more, buy some books. They're good things to have around.
Mm-hmm.
But teeing up this presentation of the why United, even in the last paragraph of his book, on the opening page, it even quite honestly says, it was not destined to last. United merged with a rival, and in a series of trade-offs motivated less by marketing theory than by the logic of the deal memo, they married their name to their new partner symbol. A new era began without us. It had been an amazing ride. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of that admission that United was walking away from this heritage of design legacy that they had. The third reason is, as you mentioned, it is a bit of a horse by design. The prior mark did feel a little bit, it felt there was some heritage there. It felt strong. And then, of course, when the merger occurred with Continental Airlines, it felt a little horse by committee when both of those were merged together to come into the one new logo of taking Continental's blue, their look, and merging it just with the United name. It felt very boardroom designed. I'll put it that way. And then finally, the general moment we're in. I know a lot of people are staying home. I know, like myself, love to travel, and there's kind of that hunger to get back out there and safely travel again. And if you're going to work on a project, might as well be something fun. With the loss of Virgin Airlines. Oh God, hang on. My Zoom just restarted on me.
Okay, we can still hear you.
Um,
So
okay, perfect.
yeah.
With the loss of Virgin Airlines in the United States, it's a real bummer that.
Oh,
Oh, no problem.
something happened. Okay, now we're back.
Yeah, it looks like Zoom.
Yeah, we're back. Something is happening.
Watch, we all went through a Zoom update at the exact same time.
We're back. I could see the Zoom. Jonah, can
All
you see
right.
us? All right, Jonah's got to do something. Hold on, hang tight.
Yeah,
Oh, we can keep
sure.
talking. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. With Virgin America sort of gone and acquired by Alaskan Airlines, there really isn't a experience airline anymore. It's a lot of fighting on low price. So it felt like this was a good opportunity to rethink who Delta is, differentiate sorry, rethink who United is, differentiate a little more than on price. I pulled a quote in here from an article I read when I was doing my homework. The Delta CEO essentially said that business travel won't come back ever to pre-pandemic levels. The idea of that luxury travel first business class is probably going away. So how can we take some of that sort of care and thinking and bring it into the overarching airline experience? Obviously, for something as simple as a logo design, this is definitely overthinking it, but this is sort of, in my opinion, the necessary things you need to go through to gain that perspective. So,
Before you continue, I
oh,
had to just jump in here
sure, sure.
because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to hear the rest of what you have to say. But I was just
yeah.
thinking that is sad if that's true because when we can travel and when we have traveled in the past, I really like traveling because it's like my bridge to a whole nother world, a whole nother culture. And maybe they're starting to disappear, this kind of luxury travels thing, but it would be sad if that were the case. And one airline that I just want to give a shout out to is JetBlue, and they have Mint.
Mhm.
And Mint doesn't cost a ton more, but they do a really good job of putting you that business class seat, and it's like something that you can lay down in, and the quilted blankets. And I was like, this is really nice, and I feel like it's worth whatever money I can pay for it. So I hope this is not the case, Maxwell.
Yeah, right. I mean, me too. As you just sort of stated, you're willing to pay a little bit more for the sort of comfort of travel and not just feel like a packed bus soaring through the sky. All right, so a little bit of brand homework. As
Mm-hmm.
we mentioned, this is the mark. They went through their entire a recent redesign process where they rolled out the kind of Frankenstein of the continental look and the United look into this very blue, playing up the globe. It feels very corporate, sort of expected. There's really not a lot here from a design visual perspective where it cues into something really of strong interest, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing terribly engaging with it. But during my initial research, I started to pull and dive into a couple of different interesting things that queued up my thinking for the logo. The first was the sub brand that United has called Polaris, which is their business and first class sort of subcategory of higher luxury, higher touch, more into the hospitality world. And looking into it, they use this star imagery in a very subtle way that I thought was interesting. It cued into some more emotional feelings, and you could tell a bit more of a story there than just sort of the globe treatment they had. So I kind of put this on my wall as something to potentially take a look at and come back to. Here's just some examples of how that all looks from the Polaris perspective. You're kind of as you'd expect, your first class type experience. The next thing I looked at, in addition to where visually could the logo go from a shape and design perspective, but also too from a color standpoint. So I took a look at all the different airlines that exist out there, the top domestic and the top international, and tried to figure out, is there a gap somewhere in color design that we can exploit? And as I sort of sorted things out, kind of discovered it very quickly. You have your spikes in the reds and you have your spikes in the blues, but there were two areas that stuck out as opportunity. The sort of blue, green, aqua area, and then the purple indigo all the way to the right. Now, one of the nice things is that with the United palette, the way that they have it currently set up, they obviously favor the dark blues and leaning into that very corporate blue world, which, can be a tough thing to own generally. But given the observation that I made just before about the greens and purples, we could simply flip the hierarchy around, still use the United brand colors, but just do a little bit of a tweak as far as what's primary and secondary. So, on to the thinking. So thoughtful design requires strategy, obviously, as we were saying. So start with why. This is just sort of a immediate brain dump of, in my journal, for as much as I love my iPads and computers and iPhones, and I'm the total Apple guy, sometimes just a pencil and a moleskin notebook is the way to go, just for getting ideas out there. So I just started going into writing down all the things that I think about travel. What does it mean to me? What is the actual sort of magic behind it? Because it is an emotional thing. You're going to another place. You are meeting other people. You're, gathering an experience that you wouldn't have otherwise. So, how does United fit into that? The larger elements that I pulled out were to aspire to a higher purpose, connect people with their destination, not just say, oh, we're here to fly, people meeting people. It's like, no, you're kind of a temporary hotel that people stay in while they get to that cool place that they want to go. No one's really excited to hop on an airplane these days. We want to make travel feel special again, and then provide design as an experience, not necessarily a just promotional tool. So one of the quotes that I like to pull out, and I like to pull inspiration from everywhere, is this great Anthony Bourdain quote that travel is about that gorgeous feeling of teetering into the unknown. And that
sounds
phrase,
so Anthony Bourdain right there.
Yeah, right.
So Anthony Bourdain.
I can
teetering
hear
into
the
the unknown
voiceover as he's just walking down some street somewhere.
Yeah.
So based on that idea of the unknown, I started to think about, all right, what is the ultimate unknown, right? We think about space. We think about the infinite vast of just being able to look up and see the stars. And it's a very human thing that everyone has done, going all the way back through all of humanity. That idea of looking up at the stars and being something a bit more aspirational. And then on top of it, Polaris is the name of the North Star. So just started looking at photography and trying to get a feel for how this could all come together. And then, going back to the color exploration of, all right, we have greens and we have purples and blues. All those can work together naturally in a way when you look at something like the Northern Lights. All those colors can weave in and out of each other. And like Bob Ross says, we don't make mistakes, we make happy accidents. So this is kind of a happy accident that just sort of, as I was going through the process of discovering and thinking of trying to create, all right, how do I want this start to begin to look, not only in the sense of the logo, but how do we then expand it to all the different touch points of the brand? Because a logo doesn't live on its own. It's never just isolated in a field of white space. It lives somewhere. So hopped in back to the good old notebook and just started doodling. In portfolio school, our teachers always said, start with 100 and then throw them out and then do another 100 and then you'll start to get somewhere. So lots of little doodles of the U, the shape, just playing with the letter form very simply, quick little sketches to inform the design process. So here, playing around with overlapping geometry, getting back a little bit to that Saul Bass Tulip U logo that is sort of heralded as one of the best logo designs of all time by one of the best logo designers of all time. Going through and in sort of my drawing, like on the bottom left, all of a sudden I thought, all right, what about like a star whooshing? What if it just sort of left a trail like a comet? Do we go into this world of celestial a bit more? Pulling playing around and redrawing the actual tulip logo to learn a little bit more about how is the motion. If it were, extrapolated into a 3D space, how would that end up looking? And then, of course, stepping away from it completely and then just going to other stuff and, continuously drawing and doodling, keeping all those mental ideas, keeping those plates spinning, so to speak. So here, kept going, kept taking the initial ideas that I had, playing up that idea of the U, of the star motion sort of swooping through, playing around with, do we flatten it out at the base of the U? Do we try to build in some type of, representation of motion to give that star more of a sense of speed and velocity? Going even further into, all right, if we took that same motion idea and tried to build it into a typeface, how would that look? Just some initial ideas. Who knows? Maybe we'll come back to it. Treating the U as a shield. Again, just playing around with a lot of different ideas of what's working, what's not working, where does kind of my instinct take me as far as what feels like a right fit. Even, quite honestly, just writing right next to stuff to be like, it's not really that good. Going even further, stepping away from ideas, but then coming back. There's a couple different things happening here that we'll go to as far as logos that didn't necessarily make the cut, but using that shadow of the U as I started playing around with it, it almost kind of felt like a airplane seat on the left and then kind of the window on the right. I thought that was, something interesting that was kind of happening. And then, of course, always I kind of found myself gravitating right back to that idea of space, star, and that motion of the U. And then any airline branding wouldn't be complete without, quickly thinking about how does it look on the side of a plane, because that's probably the biggest printing of the logo and of the design that you'll probably interact with. And then a cool astronaut.
Why not?
Yeah, right. All right, so we'll hop into the work. As I pointed out before, we kind of have this geometric U that has that shadow extrapolated out. It has a little bit of a feel of a airline seat in a window. I thought to myself, what if we push that even further? And all of a sudden it got into this very sort of 70s retro bubbly type vibe that didn't necessarily feel like it was a fit. Again, playing with shapes, trying to evoke a little bit of that Saul Bass tulip logo, keeping that in the back of my head. And then going to that idea of the star from the Polaris logo and trying to come up with a way to develop that and draw that. And how does that integrate in with the U? With this one, you almost kind of get like it almost evokes the shape of an airplane a little bit, heading downward. But the real sort of aha moment I had was when I took a look at the tulip U, and used the curve of that bottom left corner to create the different quadrants of the star. So that was my way of calling back to that era of tradition, to pull that out of nowhere, or pull that from somewhere and make sure that whenever I design things, one of the things I always like to do is build a little bit of a story and have it so that things are tied to other references within the brand. So in this example here, pulling that curve from the old logo to sort of inspire and carry through those little design elements just creates little moments of surprise. So now that I did that little exploration, let's go ahead and make a logo. About to play my little time-lapse video here.
Okay, before you do that. Are you playing it right now?
Sorry.
Okay, hold on.
Hang on. Let me back up.
Sorry.
Okay.
First of all, I just want to say you're doing an amazing job of talking us through the entire design process. You're thinking super logical and very clear. I love the way that you broke even the color palette down to find space where it wasn't too crowded, identifying there are a lot of marks that are in the red space and the blue, but not much in between those two parts. People are commenting on excellent keynote, great presentation so far. I could tell you're a well-trained designer, and you must be used to doing big level presentations because you're very good at it. So kudos to
Thank
you.
you.
It's one of the strongest keynotes on the logo design series that we've had thus far. So without further ado, go ahead and play the video.
Well, thank you so much.
Do we need a drum roll here? Is that?
Here he goes.
Not yet.
There we go.
And you're working in Illustrator here?
Working in Illustrator, just kind of going through and building out the different elements. So there we just saw pulling the curvature from the tulip U to develop the star. And in this part here, referencing back to that tulip to try to bring through the sort of curvature at the bottom, because it's not even. It sort of follows a bit more of a natural organic flow. It's not just sort of a uniform line all the way through, which I thought was just sort of a interesting learn from the greats, Saul Bass himself type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So now we get to the full logo design.
Oh, neat.
That's pretty awesome.
Are you doing this in Keynote?
No, that was a After Effects special.
Oh, you breaking it all out. Look at him, Mark.
People are commenting.
Yeah, I'm going to present something. Let's present it.
Let's do it. You should do it.
Yeah, people are wondering how you did it, but I saw that you're doing that in Keynote, but there's a lot of this advanced animation. It does look like you're doing something beyond that.
Some more complicated masking and reveals there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a fun program to know, but don't let anybody know that you know it, because then they're going to ask you to do all their logo reveal videos and editing and stuff like that. So just a pro tip. So now we get to the composed logo here. Breaking down just a couple quick elements of it. One of the things that I really liked and sort of fell into was using that negative space on the right to create kind of the whoosh and trail from the star as it takes off upwards and on sort of more aspirational trajectory up. As I mentioned before, the overlap in that negative space down at the base of the U is following a curve that is a bit more of a natural, doesn't line up and is a monoform line weight around the shape, just because optically, sometimes we need to go in there and make a call and adjust things so that it looks right. Even though it may be mathematically correct and mathematically even, when you look at it, you'll kind of be like, something seems wrong. That's why in typography, the vertical strokes and the horizontal strokes are different weights, just so that optically things have a bit more of a balance.
Nice.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, nice. Keep going.
Thank you. Going into the word mark here, took a look at the old United, really from the redesign and the update in the early 90s, the mid 90s going all the way up till the recent redesign. Helvetica was their go-to. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Helvetica. I use it for my agency brand font, but I think there's a stronger, bolder, more contemporary choice. So I went with the workhorse that is Gotham. And going into there we go. Going in and taking a look at the actual word mark, made some custom tweaks so that it isn't just that standard typeface slapped on there, but let's make some creative choices to give it a little bit of personality. So the curves that I inserted here, the taking away that sort of top left of the N and then adding that shadow under the horizontal portion of the T, those are taken directly from the star in the larger logo of the combined word mark. So using those curves and bringing those curves through in other elements of the type so that when they do sit together, they feel like a designed element, not just a logo with type right next to it.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say for the record too, it is okay to design a beautiful mark and just use a typeface. Just want to say.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah,
but when possible, Yeah,
Yeah,
when
right.
possible, try to integrate so that it feels like this cohesive whole. Now you can see that the mark that Maxwell came up with has a solid shape. It has a monostroke trail leading to this star form, and so those are like a lot of elements. So if you were to just quote unquote slap on a typeface, it might feel very foreign. So you have to work to try to bring these two things so that they live in the same world.
Yeah. And then on top of that, making sure that they can live in the world, uh, a logo has to work as simple as black and white. If you noticed with my time lapse videos, whenever I design logos, I always start in just a white or black shape. I never use color until I get to a place where I say, oh, that mark can be identified and differentiated even when color isn't an option.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just sort of an early logo design tip that I learned that's helped me a lot as I've moved forward in my design career. So then, in addition to the mark that we have here, my branding brain started going a little crazy, and I started thinking, all right, what are some other cool ways that we can up and sort of upgrade the United brand and the United feel and presentation? And like I mentioned, whenever I make design choices, if I can root it in something, even if it's super inside baseball deep, I still love doing it because once you find out that little secret, it becomes something fun. So I'll give you a good example. So this is the opening sort of handful of notes that lead into George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, which is the theme song for United Airlines. Has been for decades. So
Very iconic.
I'm sure everyone's heard it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Should I play it again?
We can't hear it, so I
Oh,
think
I'm
it's the way
sorry.
our audio set up. You guys know what it is. You'll have to
Yeah.
like trust us.
Okay.
Dun
All
dun
right.
dun dun, something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not a problem. So basically, I took the song and I put it into a wave visualizer. And since the one of the elements that we're carrying through with the new brand is this idea of the sort of aurora borealis, I went in and used that actual the waveform to create the lines of this aurora borealis texture that's going to pop up in a couple places throughout the brand exploration here.
So
Little
smart.
things. Thank you. It's all about the little things to create those moments of surprise and delight with people. Just like the FedEx arrow. It's a little conversation piece. Uh, in addition to that, created a custom halftone texture that utilized that star shape to give us just another graphical element to play with and to integrate into the brand in a way that felt natural, but also felt artistic and thoughtful. It wasn't just sort of, a globe texture just to be a globe texture. There's some room to play with this, especially if you're, coming into the brand as an actual designer. So let's
I like
talk
the
about
attention to
planes.
detail there.
Thank you. So for the primary livery of the planes, kept the white. I think it's a very clean, pretty look, but use the star gradient to create that natural transition from white into that aurora, going toward the back of the plane where it gets dark and uses blues and those blacks from the overarching United brand. Created a secondary livery that uses a bit more of the photography treatment of the Northern Lights. Can swap those out and create different plane designs and things like that. There was a point in time when, airlines would have a bunch of different colored planes and things like that. And it created this sort of sense of fun of who knows what I'm going to walk into now. Oh, and then the curve going toward from the middle of the fuselage all the way back to the tail, again, is carrying through that exact same radius from the star. So the little things of reinforcing your design choices by actually making design choices based on the overarching system. Going to the Rhapsody Aurora, here we have it wrapping the entire plane. So, imagine, if you will, you're about to go to the airport, hop on a plane, and all of a sudden this pulls up. You're like, oh, party plane's here. I guess we're going somewhere.
That is a party plane right there, I have to say. Yes. There's a pole in the middle of the plane.
Yeah, and then I thought a lot of airlines are having a bit more fun with the underbelly of the plane and going back to those elements of surprise and delight. Thought it would be really fun if there were cheeky, playful, actually human one-to-one messages on the bottom of the planes, not just corporate speak, but just saying like, "Hey, we're out of here," as you see it as the plane takes off.
Mm-hmm. Great way of using underutilized space that's ignored. I think you could have a lot of fun with that. I could even see them saying something like, if you can read this, you're too close.
Yeah, right. Right. You just missed us.
See ya, sucker.
Yeah. So even applying the logo design further, depending on application. So for example, the full color logo is on the darker background, but hey, if there's an opportunity where letterpress can be involved, why don't we just use a blind letterpress to create that star so that, it's just a fun little design magic that you can sprinkle on there that can add just a little bit more surprise and delight for people.
Mm-hmm.
Going into the seating and sort of the interior of the plane, using the logos, embossed on all the headrests, but going into things like the stitching pattern on the seats, pulling those same curves and everything from the portion of Rhapsody in Blue, the Gershwin song, that follows those same lines. So blew them up a little bit so that they could spread out and so they weren't as compressed. But the lines on the seats, you could see them as a bit more like topographical lines, or the fact that they're taking off of the melody from the theme song. Taking a look at how it comes to life in signage, actually, at an airport where you might be walking by the lounge, on a very simple, elegant, purple to green frosted glass type situation. And then how it can come to life in print. So for business cards, for example, bringing in, as I mentioned, that texture of the halftone made from the star element that is carried throughout the brand, printed on the backs of the cards here as this sort of the United take on the evening sky. Going into how it comes to life digitally, it does have sort of that digital contemporary feel to it. And I think that, in general, even though we're talking logos, I think, being thoughtful and saying, hey, we can add a little more human personality to this, to the brand and how we present ourselves, by saying things like, once you tap your destination, a little message pops up that says, ooh, great choice, Chris. So it's little things like that where we can weave in a bit more personality and be a bit more thoughtful with the brand. Going into the check-in process, actually at the airport, pulling in that Rhapsody Borealis in the background becomes the new presentation of the terminal as people approach. Again, not a lot of people using purple and green, but there's a lot of blues at the airport. This is an easy way to begin to differentiate and say, oh, follow the purple sign, follow the green sign. Again, sort of ways to help them stand apart. I'm
loving the applications that you're coming up with, because you're really designing a system. And as much as people talk about doing branding, they're not really doing branding until they start to look at the entire system from top to bottom, the way you're able to visualize sound and incorporate that, the thinking of the color palette integration, really trying to position them so that they're differentiated. Very thoughtful stuff here. Really appreciate what you're doing. I could tell there's a depth of experience that you've had here. You're not some kid who's just fallen off the design wagon and starting. A lot of comments online, and I have to address them right now, which is,
sure,
where are you getting all these mock-ups from, man? Because I've looked for airport mock-ups, and they're not easy to find. Somebody asked,
sure,
do you own your own plane, or what's the deal here? And obviously, I know you don't own your own plane, but...
I mean,
Where?
the answer is yes, but I'm also a liar, so who knows? Yeah, I mean, a lot of the mock-ups and everything are like I use. There's plenty of websites Vato Elements.
Hmm.
You pay a monthly fee and get them, but frankly, I also just sort of learned how to retouch in Photoshop. So, like this image, for example, was just an image of the terminal. And I've just, through practice, have just gotten good at how do you lay things into an environment and match
Hmm.
lighting and shadow so that it feels like, you know, a real thing and not just, oh, you very clearly just Photoshop something in there.
Right. So on this one, this is at the O'Hare Airport that you found an
Uh,
image and then you
I
retouched.
Well, here, this definitely was. So this was the normal United terminal
Hmm.
from O'Hare, and went in and retouched it. So there's a lot of little detail things that I can kind of nerd out about when you
Oh, I
mock stuff
know.
up.
I can tell you
Um,
right now. I know. I could see it. So you took a United Airlines terminal photograph, which was a
mhm,
nice, clean photograph to begin with, right? Everything looks immaculate, and then
yep,
you went in and cloned everything else out and masked everything so that then you can begin this whole mock-up process, right?
yeah, yeah,
I think this is
and
a
then
future product that you could sell here. The Maxwell Billings Pro airline mock-up set with airplanes and seating and all this kind of stuff. Nice work.
totally, yeah. I'll package it up and I'll give you a cut.
Yes. Call me. We can do a deal.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like for me, one of the things that I look at a lot is, especially with photos and mock-ups and things like that, are depth. So a lot of times, what you'll see when people mock something up is all your design elements look crystal sharp and
Yep.
really honed in. But if you look at like the turnstiles at the bottom, just apply a blur filter to match how blurry the environment is, and now all of a sudden it looks like, oh, it's a real thing. Oh, it's really there.
Chris Bartoloni is saying you missed the garbage can. Chris, you're gonna have to get
Oh
over
no.
yourself. It'll be okay. Is there a garbage can that you missed? I don't even see that.
Yes, on the right. I thought I got it.
Oh,
Darn
Someone
it.
has a good eye.
Dang it.
eagle eye over there.
Well done. Well
Bartoloni,
done.
good one. Okay, but this one you also then comped out. Then you cut everything out and mocked it
Correct.
in.
Yep.
Wow, well
Yep.
done.
So even the screens in the background, the TV
Yeah.
screens, I updated all of those, and just a quick messaging note. Had a little fun with it so that thinking about the person walking through the airport, they see this sign, and whereas before it said group check-in, it's like, okay, that feels very like wayfindery, corporate, strict. How about with a group? Head this way. And then once you get to the group check-in area, it says group check-in, congratulations, let's get you settled. And it's like, yeah,
Hmm.
if you're traveling with a group, it's probably a pain in the butt to travel with a big group like that. Just another example of how it can come to life in an environment paired with a little bit of messaging. Aspire to travel better and aspire to better travel. Had a little bit of fun with the interiors, playing with that kind of Virgin America, a little bit of a party. Treat it like it's fun, right?
Hmm.
You have thinking about that internal environment. It's those colors can be soothing. It can relax you down and sort of help you just relax into your seat. And then of course my brain started going to things like, what could you do with aromatherapy? Does United offer little kits that you can put in your mask, and it's lavender or sandalwood or stuff like that, so that you're smelling something nice and calming during your flight. Going to the first aid amenities, what are, obviously on a lot of things, it's okay, let's just put the logo on there, keep it simple. But again, how can we bring through the different design elements? Maybe the pillowcase takes that same screen printing of the halftone pattern, and now all of a sudden that becomes a texture for linens and things like that. For a sleep mask, again, let's be playful and cheeky with our language. Why, just have it say BRB, right? You'll be right back.
Hmm.
You're going to take a nap. BRB.
I gotta say, a lot of people are commenting on how you thought this through from the user experience, and some people are even saying, "Hey, I would book a flight to nowhere because they want to fly this plane."
Hey, mission accomplished, right?
Well, guess what, you guys, ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Christos speaking, and we are at a cruising altitude of 30,000 square feet today. If you look out to your left, you're going to see Maxwell Billings. If you look out to the right, you're going to see his design firm, made by EightySeven. I hope you're enjoying this flight, and I know. Okay, boom, you are now headed to nowhere.
Right? We're going to do a lap and come right back.
Yes.
And then, thinking through, if you are going into that first class experience, what are the little things that we can leave for you? Normally they would just have a bag that says, "Oh, United Airlines." Again, why not just apply a little messaging on there, say, "Welcome aboard." Something that has a little bit more style and panache to it than just, "Oh, hey, here's more of our logo. You're on a United flight. You already know that. So why don't we, treat it as a place to message with people?"
Wait, go back to that mock-up.
Sorry.
It's just like a leather bag that you're comping up here.
It was, yeah.
Okay. This is a very posh airline, you guys. Very posh. Look,
this is for the super elite.
Yeah, this is like premium first class, elite class. I thought there was an opportunity here. Maybe it's just me, but because it's United Welcome Aboard, what if it says welcomes you aboard?
Ooh.
United welcomes you aboard. I don't know.
Link it right into the headline.
Why not?
Well, good opportunity here. I was actually playing around with that, but I ended up stepping away from it. But, something as simple as the coffee cups that you get at the premium lounge. How do they look? Again, you can be a little more playful with things. And if you're reaching for a coffee, why not just have it say something like "fuel up"? Or if we use Chris's direction, we can just take the U logo and drop it into the up and call it a day. Done and done.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the presentation. Just want to say thank you. And I can go back to any of the elements that we want to talk about, answer any questions. Had a lot of fun doing it. Happy to have a little Q&A with you guys.
Excellent. So first of all, round of applause, everybody. Woo! Woo!
That was nice. Great job.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, so let's have a conversation. There's a lot of respect and love and little ideas here. There's a lot of associations that people are making. So let's address those things. I wasn't able to read all of them. I read a lot of them. Once again, I can't emphasize this enough. The presentation was on point. The reasoning, taking us through every little part of the decision-making process, the research, very well presented. You had me engaged the entire time. Great job. And for those of you guys that are looking at this mark right now, that you're looking at this mark and you're like, yeah, I could design that. I could design that. The difference between you and somebody like Maxwell or the big dogs in the space is the amount of thought, attention that they put into this, because the mark is, I know it's difficult to design, but it's not what the companies pay for. They pay for the research, the thinking, the analysis, the strategic positioning. And they want to make sure when they give you $400,000, $600,000 or $1 million to $2 million for this project, that you've done the due diligence, that you've made sure that you're protecting them against having to change the mark in 2 months. Now, I do not love the hybrid model logo between United and Continental Airlines. It looks old already. And a lot of times when these mergers happen, it's nobody's best logo. It's just a compromise. And eventually they'll roll out another logo. I'm almost 100% certain of that there's a rollout plan that we're not privy to as the public. But sooner or later, you'll see one thing go away and something else becomes more prominent. Like when all companies merge, this is what happens. It's because they don't want to alienate or lose anybody from either brand. There's this weird hybrid model. So that's what's happening there. Just a little business inside stuff there. So when you're able to present and think through the problem, as Maxwell's done here, you start to elevate yourself way, way, way above everybody else in terms of just mark makers, in terms of people who sell design services on 99 Designs, on Fiverr and Upwork. So when people say, like, I can't compete against those people, if you think like you're competing against them, you've already lost. Now, I'm not judging anybody that's in that group. If you have to make a buck and that's the only way you know how to get a client, by all means do that. But then you got to elevate yourself out of that ASAP and acquire the skills that Maxwell's displaying for you today. A lot of questions in terms of how much time did it take you to do this from start to finish? Help us understand, because you put a lot of work into this.
Yeah. I mean, I will caveat and say I am kind of notorious for being quick in Photoshop, and just I've been doing this for a long time, so don't let my answer intimidate you. But I would say I had been thinking about this and giving it thought for probably 2.5, 3 weeks potentially, and then I would say the last week and a half has been full blown in the design field, building the presentation, crafting the story. So I mean, maybe a month total of just sort of start to finish from development and everything. Because as Chris mentioned, you're telling a story whenever you present or build this stuff. So you got to give some thought about how that unfolds for folks like you to enjoy it.
Now, was this a very organic process for you that you got yourself into the research and the thinking and then it evolved into this? Or did you already kind of have an idea as to where you wanted to go and filled in the gaps in between?
Yeah, I would say 85% of it was just sort of organic learning, paying attention. I had an initial thought of where I kind of wanted things to go, but I didn't let that sort of poison the well, so to speak, of when I started doing my homework and researching. So there were a couple things that fell out that were happy little surprises and accidents, but I, from the start, wanted to do something that was a bit more graphical, aspirational, felt a little bit more, modern and elevated. And also, I think space and that stuff is pretty cool. So, yeah.
So just to confirm, it took you about a month's worth of work, almost as much time preparing the presentation as doing the design work. And believe it or not, once you get into the big leagues, that's kind of where a lot of the time is spent. Because if you don't want this to go back to revision hell, you have to put together a really thoughtful deck that tells a story and that makes all the decisions seem very clear and logical. That it's not just one designer's emotional whims and I woke up this morning, this is what I want it to look like kind of decision. So are you doing work in the meantime between this month, or did you take a month off of doing anything and just work on this specifically?
Oh God, I wish. Yeah, no, still doing client work, still, going through the routine and meeting with people and things like that. So, yeah, I would say the last week is when everything truly came together of having to block things off and move things around. But yeah, I mean, for as much as you can plan, and I kind of learned this from the ad agency world, for as much as you can plan and do all the upfront work, just know the 48 hours before you present everything, it's all going to go to shit and you're going to have to redo stuff. And that's really when everything starts to happen. So you could work on it 6 months out. The 2 days before the presentation is really when things start to pop and the magic starts to happen.
That explains a couple of things, because you kind of been silent with us, sending us a little bit, and then all of a sudden I wasn't sure what I was going to walk into today's call. And you're a new logo redesign expert or logo therapist for us, so I had no idea. All I could do is brace for impact, so to speak, and hope that you did your best to present your best. And I think you absolutely did that. You hit it out of the ballpark. Here's another question coming in that you mentioned something about it feeling very like space and these colors and aspirational. And we hear a lot about how space travel is going to be happening in the next couple of years. And I'm excited for that. And so I think using tying it into their sub-brand Polaris, is that their sub-brand Polaris?
It's interesting how they treat it, because it really only comes to life in those first and second class sections. So it's weird to even like consider it a true sub brand, but yes, they do sort of tip into that space Polaris North Star type of world there.
And I love that, because see, like even in your redesign, you took into consideration all the investments they've made, and it's a great jumping off point. So it's like reverse engineering the parent brand to make sure it fits together like Lego blocks with the sub brand. And I think that's really smart. And I loved how you took this star and turned it into the dot pattern, because there's so many applications of that. And of the 3 airplane wraps that you showed, my favorite was the first one. I loved how organic it was. I loved the white space. The full wrap felt a little party bus-ish to me, but this is very classy. It feels aspirational. It's just really nice. It feels fast, like the colors got pushed into the back of the plane, and
Yeah.
seeing what do they call this when you dip dye shirts?
Oh,
Tie
like
dye.
the ombre.
Ombre, yes, ombre, man, and you're on your point with the language too. Yes, the ombre kind of fade, and I like that, and I like having the white. It feels fresh and clean and open. And at first, I was a little concerned because the mark itself doesn't fit in that triangular wedge
Hmm.
as well as it can, because some marks are designed specifically to fill up that triangle. So they almost design
Sure.
within that triangle. But you did a great job of bringing in the secondary or tertiary elements, the colors, the aurora borealis, the dot patterns. This is a really rich identity system that you've been able to design. So I'm feeling all of that.
Thank you. Appreciate
Now,
that.
one person said that in the airline, in the lounging part, or not the lounge, I'm sorry, when you're doing the color treatment, the mood lighting,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think during that part, they're like, I could sleep there. And that's the whole point. You don't want to get on a plane and
Yeah.
be distracted and wired so that when you land, you're jet lagged and fatigued. You do want it to feel like the temporary hotel experience between your next destination. And I think this is exactly the right vibe. And the little accoutrements, the little travel bonuses that you get in business and first class, I thought you did an excellent job there. Some of you guys who haven't traveled business class before, every airline gives you a little something: socks, eye mask, a toothbrush. Some of them give you pajamas to wear, especially if you're flying in one of the fancier ones. It's kind of nice. It's nice to be able to like feel that in how you thought through everything, and the stitching of the seats. Excellent way of bringing in design. We've seen designers in the past take the logo and deconstruct the logo, and it's repeating the logo in many ways, but I think you found ways to extend it so it feels fresh and I'm not getting logo fatigue. So great job there as well.
Thank
Okay.
you.
The last comment that I saw was, oh, it's very millennial. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but that sounds good to me.
I mean, I think it's if they're not already there in the next 18 months, millennials are going to be the primary buying force in the world. So I mean, yeah, follow the money.
You know what?
Yeah.
And they're
Okay.
probably the strongest health wise and they have the strongest
Yeah.
immune system, so they'll probably be on the plane while all those old people are at home worrying about corona.
Yeah, moms and dads aren't, actively posting the travel photos on Instagram that we're all, smashing the like buttons over. It's, us millennial travelers who are getting out there on cool purple and green airplanes.
Okay, so there's a technical comment here. Peter Chang is saying, unfortunately, you cannot have multiple colors with in-flight lighting. Well, maybe at this point in time, maybe they can run two strips of LEDs and then they can cycle through them and have colors blend. We don't know. Let's not get too concerned about that,
I'm sure I
Peter.
can swap a light bulb. I'm sure I
Yeah,
can hop in there
something can
and
happen there.
I got a comment here from Edna, and she's asking if you have any specific habits or systems that help to support your creative work. So I think she's trying to get into the mindset and how you actually perform the art craft.
sure. I mean, the first thing, no matter what, is always think about who that end user is going to be, who is going to be sort of on the receiving end of what you're creating, and then work backwards from that. Thinking about what their needs are and how they kind of operate and function, and how you can create something to help for that. That's just a very easy way to build something into your process to where you always have something to like pressure test. You can say, oh, does this really match with who we're trying to talk and position to? And then on the other element of it is I kind of treat it creatively as like rounds. So first round, come up with as much stuff as you can. Nothing's off the table. Pick out a bunch of different ideas. And then as you do the process enough, you'll start to figure out like, all right, in round two, which ones are working, which ones aren't. And then in round three, whittling it down even further so that eventually you can do that all internally. And I mean, I sort of through my career have built that muscle of being able to design directly within the computer or, being able to just creative direct internally. But really it's just getting into the habit of stepping outside yourself and saying, how would somebody else react to this work? And if you do that, that will give you a fresh new perspective and also improve the actual effectiveness of what you're trying to make because you've looked at it through that lens.
All right. So before we take another question, I want to show everybody here. Here's the original logo and the revised logo. There were some comments that people said you shouldn't have showed us the final logo. It's fine. If that bothers you, we'll never show you guys the final logo ever again. But here it is. I want you guys to go ahead and drop in your opinion. If you prefer the original or the revised, you can just hit A or B in the comments, and let's see where we net out. And I won't judge you too harshly depending on what you vote on, but let's see what happens here. And while we're waiting for that reaction to happen, I want to let everybody know, if you're interested in Maxwell's work and his firm, it's called Made by EightySeven. And you guys go madeby87.com to see the rest of his work. It's a pretty impressive body of work. And it's very consistent to what you're seeing here today. He's based out of Chicago, Illinois. And if you want to find him on Instagram, it's Made by 87 and it's Maxwell Billings. So let's see how we did in the voting here. What did they say? A or B? The votes are still slow in coming in. So let's see what happens here.
Sure.
Here we go. Come on, guys. There's like 460 some odd people in this room. Is the internet a little slow?
There's the delay from the live stream, but yeah, I think everyone's going B.
Usually it streams in really fast. So overwhelmingly, everybody's saying B. I think it's because you have a very strategically and wisely chosen, I think, a universally hated logo right now because it's so bad. Rhonda, what are you doing, Rhonda? I said I wouldn't judge you, but Rhonda, there you are.
There's two A's tripling in.
Yeah, you guys can have the original logo. You can keep it. For me, I'm going with the revised logo for sure. Okay, so heavy leaning towards your revised rebrand, and I think that's a good sign for you. You might have a future in this, Maxwell.
I might be good at this. Who knows?
Yeah, stick it out. Don't quit just yet, all right?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Okay, now you mentioned something, and I think you said it. Did you go to the Portfolio Center?
I went to Chicago Portfolio School.
School.
Yeah, here in Chicago, that's where I sort of learned a bit more of the craft of advertising, how to present, how to think creatively, and then on top of my years of just being in the design and art world leading up to that.
Okay, so did you study advertising in school?
Yeah, studied technically marketing communications, parentheses advertising. I know it just rolls right off the tongue.
Holy cow. So Marcom advertising.
You got it.
Okay.
So graduated in that and then actually worked as a account person for a couple of years going into the advertising world, which is client relations and things like that. Zero design. Realized I hated it, was not good at it, and decided to switch to my sort of passion, which is design and creativity, and went to portfolio school, did that at evenings, interned during the day, and now fast forward, 11, 12 years later, now we're here.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. That does explain a lot of things about you, I have to say. You guys don't know this, but basically, you're an account person, you're dealing with clients, so you have to have a lot of client human relationship, personal skills. You have to be a really good communicator, and you're dealing with crazy stuff because most of the times you're caught between the client and a hard place, which is the other creatives. And you have to support your client, but you have to sell the creative through, and it's a horrible position to be in. You said you hated it, you got out of it, and now you're doing design. And it's great to see that you've are dipping your toes into animation and doing really beautiful presentations. I still think your superpower, personally speaking, is the person who's going to be talking to the client, presenting design, to be a champion for the work that is being done by your firm. And I love the way that you hold yourself, the way that you communicate. I would hire you. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, knowing how to pitch is a very valuable skill.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mark, let's take one more question, and I have to get out of here. So what's the last question? How do we end this?
Let's see. Nothing too pressing. I think we've addressed a lot of it. A lot of it was from the process.
I tried my best.
And how we came up with it.
Yeah. As I was reading the comments in real time, I was folding them into the conversation. So there's a lot of love. There's a lot of hand claps for you. I believe you can go view the live chat after this. So I guess without further ado, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. And I appreciate the work that you put into this. And I think if you want to be a logo therapist, you have to be able to kind of put in this level of work to help to elevate the game and the conversation so that we're not telling people about bad habits. I'm going to ask everybody for a huge, big favor right now. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with somebody that is in the space of designer who uses that word branding and say, like, check this out. This is how you do branding. And I think that's going to help elevate the entire field and industry. And the more people that can do that, the more we can be taken seriously by our clients so that we're all holding ourselves to quite a high standard. Okay. Now, you may not be at this level today, and nobody is. It's taken Maxwell a couple of years to get here. And if we aspire to do this, we can learn and we can grow together. And that's it for me. And on behalf of the entire team, Jonah and Mark, Maxwell, thank you very much. I'm going to cut to your slide here. And this is how you guys get in touch with Maxwell. Once again, he's at madeby87.com. Go check out his work. Clients, if you need somebody to do work for you, with you, and you need a partner who can think things through, who understands the client relationship, this is your person. And I also found out, surprisingly, he's also a pro member, you guys. He's a pro member. So fam's in the house right now. That's it, Jonah. Get the music ready. I think I stalled long enough, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And hit that bell for notifications. Thanks very much for being part of the 1 billion mission, hashtag 1B-1. If you guys want to support us, you know how to send me money. I take cash, credit, gifts, gold bars, anything. That's it for us. See you guys next time. I'm out of here. Have a great weekend, everybody.